Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this evening's virtual Wormwood Charitable Trust committee meeting. My name is Councillor Alex Anderson, and I'm chair of the committee. Firstly, because we're online, can I remind all participants with a few housekeeping points? Please can everyone put their microphones on mute unless you are speaking. Please wait until I call on you before speaking, and please can everybody introduce themselves when they first address the committee so we all know who everyone is. Lovely. All right, well, let's get started. We've got quite a light agenda this evening. So I'm going to go to item 1, which is apologies for absence. The Let Officer Neil Morrison has sent an apology, but I think he has also sent a written, has he sent a written report?
Yes, Chair, that's correct. I'll cover it.
Perfect. All right, thank you. But no formal apologies for absence been received. We're all present. Number 2, declarations of interest. Has anyone got any declarations of interest they need to make this evening? Lovely. Fine, thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting. Are the minutes approved? Are there any matters arising? Oh, Stephen?
2 matters, and they're both for Osama, I think. I'm Stephen Whaley-Cohen, a co-opted member of the committee and chair of trustees of the Friends of the Scrubs. You were going to undertake a feasibility study or complete a feasibility study on the best way for vehicle access to the Scrubs and share it with us all when complete. That was the first. And the second one, which is a matter arising from several minutes ago, which Osama was bringing forward, was to look at whether the council depot next to the pony centre, which is used for general council purposes, especially waste, as well as for the Scrubs, what an appropriate rent would be, if any, to be paid for the charitable trust by the council for that non-Scrubs use.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
So my name is Osama Elimin. I'm the trust manager. Lovely to see you all again. So I'll take the first question. Was in relation to, just remind me again what it was in relation to, Stephen?
The looking at vehicle access.
Yes. Okay. So the feasibility study was given to council officers, and we were recommended that the substation route on Scrubs Lane would be a preferred access route for emergency vehicles, and so that could be used as a route in the future. We did get some costs as part of that report, and they were quite considerable, and so in order to kind of go through with this, I need to think a little bit more kind of through what the return on investment will be, and we need to kind of get some more quotes in as well to measure up what the actual utility of creating that access would be for us. So it's likely to come to the next committee meeting in June, where I can give an update and potentially some scenarios for approval as well. And on the second note, the note of the depot, so that is something that we are discussing within the Parks and Leisure team. We kind of need to figure out the different percentage of usage between all the different lots, lot 3 being Wormwood Scrubs. So it is something that is sort of in the background in terms of producing a report on the usage and kind of generating a kind of market rent for that. That's something which is still in the works, and I can give you an update after this meeting as to when we can expect a report to come to the committee.
Thank you very much, Chair and Osama. When you share the study on the vehicle access route with the committee, I hope it will include the wildlife and vegetation issues, mitigation, ecological issues, as well as financial issues. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Fine. All right, so pending those matters arising, are the minutes approved? Lovely. Good. Thank you very much. All right, on to the manager's report. Who is going first for this one?
It's Vicky, Chair.
Lovely. All right, thank you. Over to you, Vicky.
Okay, is it the first one, the UTX site?
Yeah, HS2.
Okay, so the UTX site will remain with HS2 for the foreseeable and until the station at Old Oak Common is completed in 2029-2030. So it will be the last area of the master plan to be implemented. And there's also utilities under that area as well. So we'll have to be careful with the planting plan for that area. But for the foreseeable, the UTX site is remaining as it is.
Fine, thank you. Any questions on that part of HS2? Fine. There's quite a lot of background noise. I don't know who it is, but can we just all make sure that we're on mute if we're not speaking? Thank you. Okay, 1 point. Do you want to carry on with HS2?
Okay, so is this the SBS site, the next item?
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry, I should have said before, I'm Vicky Abel, the Wormwood Scrubs Development Manager.
Thank you. Might be sorry, it's 1.2, which is the surveys, and then 1.3, which is the SBS site update.
Okay, that's Osama for the surveys.
Thanks, everyone. Yep, so we received a notification from HS2 to anticipate a number of surveys to take place on the land, specifically to the north of the Scrubs, so the area which is parallel to the railway tracks. And so those surveys are going to generally be looking at the ecology within that space and also looking at archaeology as well. So they will be undertaking surveys to have a look at the topsoil, and they will be conducted between March 2023 and February 2025. We've requested from HS2 that they give us some more detailed monitoring of exactly when we can anticipate those reports and those surveys to be carried out, so that either myself or Vicky can go down and monitor what they're doing and ensure that what surveys they're actually seeking to undertake are exactly what's happening. Miriam, you got a question?
Yes, I mean, just a sort of for clarification, these surveys or studies are being done within the boundary of the Scrubs, i.e. our side of the railway line, not their side of the railway line.
That's right, yeah, exactly. So the site demise that they have identified in their letter is essentially the whole length of Leicester's embankment and all the way up the northern edge of the Scrubs to the edge of where the substation is. So basically parallel to where the railway lines are, but on our side of the tracks.
I mean, I suppose my question, and this is presumably part of what you've asked for clarification on, is why do they need to do this on land that is nothing to do with them?
Yeah, so we're still awaiting some clarity around that. But what they have been forthcoming about telling us is that is going to basically concern the formation of the platforms for the new station that's going to be built opposite on the railway side. And so in order to mitigate the effect of those platforms being constructed, they need to assess the ecology in our space and, like I said, any archaeological sites that need to be considered as well within our space.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else on surveys? Fine, thank you. All right, Vicky, back over to you for the SBS site update.
Thank you. So the SBS site is the Stamford Brook sewer site to the north of the Scrubs. So we had a meeting 2 weeks ago with HS2 and BBVS about the reinstatement and how that's going. It's kind of a two-stage handover for that land. So this was the first part of that, and mostly looking at how they're getting on with taking out the haulage road, which was part of their planning permission was a condition of that was out by the end of February. So that was 90% complete at the time that we had that meeting just before the end of February, and should be complete now. And obviously we also had a look with them at how the seeded areas were doing. That's like the Hammerhead section at the end, the furthest away from Old Oak Common, where they started with the seeding, is growing more than any of the other areas. They haven't done all of the seeding yet because obviously they're still taking away the haulage road, the haul road. But there is growth there. Obviously, the recent weather's not been great for growth there. So hopefully we'll have to wait and see over the next kind of 4 to 6 weeks to see how that goes for the final handover. And we need to be in agreement with them that there is enough growth there to agree that it can be handed back. And also they've also planted recently 2 trees along the alternative access route as part of that reinstatement as well. That is along with the 15 trees that were planted about 2 weeks ago, and 300 whips and shrubs.
Fine. Thank you.
So the next part of the handover will be later in April, at a date to be agreed with them. And until that time, the harass fencing will stay up around the site, which gives it greater protection.
Fine. And what's replacing the fencing once that comes down?
There won't be anything, because that will be at a point where we've agreed that the site has reached good enough reinstatement that it can come down. So we don't know the exact date for that yet, but we're hoping it's as late as possible in April.
Okay, fine. Is there scope to push it if it's not back to kind of pre-HS2 condition?
I guess then we need to agree with them that that it remains for a longer period. I mean, they're going to have to be looking at that site and thinking, do they need to oversow the areas that have already been seeded to give it a greater chance of being good enough to hand back?
Okay, thank you. Any questions on this part? Stephen?
Yes, I'm guessing that with the rain, the grass will start to grow, so that may accelerate the appearance of restitution. I've been in correspondence, I'm sorry to say, with Mr. Hollingworth rather than with Vicky, about the replacement by them of the fencing that they removed. I know we don't like fencing, but some fencing is needed, and they removed, for example, the wooden fence, the timber, the nice timber fence on the west end of Chat's Paddock. Well, obviously the west end has moved a bit further east as a result of their activities, but it's quite a good area to have a demarcation of, and may stop it spreading where it shouldn't spread. And the other is the fence that's been for at least 60 years, I'm told, at the foot of Leicester's embankment, which I think was originally put there to prevent people climbing on the steep embankment. But now it would serve to preserve the only area on the scrubs where people can't go. And as it's probably too steep and too brambly to be safe for people anyway, that wouldn't be a bad thing. And I wonder if they're going to replace the part they removed and perhaps patch up anything that got damaged.
Yeah, I can ask them that as part of the reinstatement. Obviously, they'd know what fencing they've taken out from Chat's Paddock. I think the fence to Leicester's embankment is still there, and I don't think they've done anything to it. So it will still be in the same kind of condition that it was in before they started. But obviously, we can't really get to it until they've moved out and get a better look at the condition.
They certainly removed some at the east end because they needed to.
Okay, well, we can get clarity on that and come back on that one. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, fine, thank you. Anything else on item 1, HS2? Fine. Thank you. Okay. Item 2, Alternative Ecological Mitigation Master Plan. Who is talking us through this item? Vicky, lovely, over to you.
Yeah. Okay. So the AEM master plan is coming back for approval, final approval, really, to the trust, as we had it approved in principle at the last meeting. We then had a meeting with the Friends to discuss a few more issues, and the master plan was amended. Firstly, to look at the swells in front of Linford Christie Stadium and to realign them better with pedestrian routes in and out of the stadium there. We also looked at the number of trees around the central copse, and it was requested that that number of trees was reduced quite substantially, and so quite a few have been taken out now. We've also looked at the groups of trees in the meadow area and removed some groups but left some singular trees. The wetland habitat has been retained. The orchard from the northwest corner has moved to an area nearer to Braybrook play area. We're looking at different options for the tarmac area in the northwest. We haven't got a specific option for that yet, but it will depend on what the ground is like when we come to the time for implementation, and whether the land drain has been fixed there and whether that has made any difference. We're also adding in a retention basin in Martin Bell's Woods to help with biodiversity, but also to help with flooding that occurs in that area over the road that runs by there. So they were the main amendments that were made. And the next steps for the master plan now are basically we're looking at getting estimated costs for the capital works and also for the management and maintenance plan. So it's in 2 phases, 2 separate bits really, but we need estimated costs for both of them. We also then need to get some detailed work packages together of all the different proposals in the master plan. And then we start the procurement and tendering process. So we're going to tender the work as one package, so that the same contractor who will be doing the capital works will also be doing the maintenance and management of those works. We also need to look at getting a communication strategy together and how we're going to feed this information out and how we're going to promote the master plan. And also getting a programme of works together so that we know when we're starting on site how long the works are going to take on site and when we're going to be completed.
Thank you, Vicky. Obviously, this has gone through a lot of iterations and has had lots and lots and lots of different stakeholders feed into it. So I think hopefully we are now at a point where we can all feel like we're at least partly happy with some of it, and we can all move forward on that basis. So thank you. Miriam.
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions and one sort of small point, which is, I mean, I think we all understand what the changes are, so it's not particularly important, but the link to the master plan in the papers doesn't appear to work. So if the sort of the final version could be circulated, that would be great. And then my first question is, Vicky, if you could give any sort of detail on the timing of the next steps, that would be very helpful. And before we go into that, when we met to review and sort of suggest amendments to the master plan, we also talked briefly about the need for a more proactive management of the existing woodland, and the fact that we sort of kind of missed a bit of a trick in that that's not really included in the maintenance contract, and the sort of tree works contract borough-wide is more reactive. So I guess my sort of question there is just to check that maintenance work is being sort of included quite substantially within the maintenance piece of the alternative master plan, and not, does there need to be an alternative?
Sure. Okay, so going back to your first point about timing, we're still working with the cost consultant to get the costs of all the work nailed down. Really, it will still be an estimated cost. We won't know the actual cost until we tender the work. But I've got to go through like a bit of a procurement phase and get a strategy together for that procurement before we can start to tender. And also the landscape architects need to get the detailed designs together so that the contractors know what they're tendering for. So I'm thinking that kind of work can happen over the summer, and then looking to actually get some work on site. It would be really good if everything went well over the next couple of months and we can take advantage of the kind of autumn winter planting season for trees and shrubs and things like that, with a view to doing perhaps some more of the hard landscaping paths and so on a little bit later in the year, next year, say around springtime the following year. We don't know exactly how long it's going to take to complete all the works, but it's going to be probably between 6 to 12 months. And obviously the shorter time frame, the cheaper or more cost effective it will be.
Thank you, that's very helpful.
Okay, and your second point about managing the woodland and so on, we're just getting together now the management and maintenance plan, which includes which goes on for 10 years and will include the management of all the woodland areas and all the meadow areas. So it's nothing to do with any of the amenity grassland. It's all those specific wooded areas, which is basically the LNR and the sink area on the western side, and that will all be included for. It will definitely, that's what the management plan is specifically for.
Great, thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Fine. Any other questions on the master plan? Stephen?
I really want to thank you and the others for taking on board so many of our comments. The major one which has not been taken on board is the location of the pond. And I just want to say that I hope we can avoid the problems that Ravenscourt Park is having with its pond. I got photos of it today from a Friends trustee colleague describing it as falling apart, terribly maintained, full of algae, smells terrible, no biodiversity benefit at all. So, you know, if we're going to have it there, let's hope we can learn whatever lessons are to be learned from what's not working so well elsewhere.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mainly, thank you for taking on board most of our comments.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for coming back. I will say I walk in Ravenscourt Park most days and it's lovely. There's a heron that's quite regularly there. There's a lot of birds that are around and people love the pond. So I think maybe someone visited on a bad day, but in general, it's a very, very lovely space. Councillor Kwan.
Yes, sorry, not to expand that part of the conversation, but as a former councillor for Ravenscourt Park, I just wanted to chip in so that it's not normally in that state. Is there a particular reason, Steve, you might be the best one to that recently it's fallen into disrepair, or do you think it was just a bad day it was having when that particular trustee or particular person took the pictures?
I think it was yesterday, councillor.
Oh, sorry, I meant, sorry, I should have been clearer. It was addressed to Steve Hollingworth.
Sorry.
That's fine. Without going into the specifics of different parks, when I walked it at the weekend, it was lovely. So I think maybe it's just had an off day perhaps with the weather, but that's fine. But thank you for the positive comments. Yes, it has obviously been a very long process of trying to pull this all together, and I think there have been lots and lots of different stakeholders that have fed into it, and I feel like we have been able to take on board comments from almost all of those stakeholders and represented a really wide range of views here. So I think we have got a bit of something for everyone with any luck in the plan. So I'm delighted that we are hopefully about to vote to approve it and moving forward with the next step. So with that, unless there are any other comments, shall we move to the vote? Does the committee approve the master plan? Good.
I don't have a vote, but if I did, I would be saying yes.
Brilliant, lovely, brilliant. Okay, well that's a good step. Lovely. Been a long time getting to this point, but lovely. Crack on with that then. And Vicky, it'd be great to understand a bit more about timelines and things and what that's all going to look like. So lovely, great. Marvellous. All right. Site entrance improvements. Osama, is this you for number 3?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so for those who would have visited the Scrubs, you would have noticed that we've got some brand new entrances, which thankfully the OPDC donated some £110,000 worth of money for. So those works are all but complete. We were hoping that they would be completed at the end of last week. But as you noticed, that some of the fencing was still up, as we have some contractor equipment still on site. So that is due to be polished off this week. And we've made a saving of just over £5,000. So I am going to begin the process of writing to the OPDC to let them know that we're going to spend that money on maintaining those paths.
Brilliant. Lovely. Got to see quite a few of those today, and they look good. We had a number of residents who wrote to, I think, all of us to complain about particularly things like access to the play park and getting on and off. I think there was one elderly lady who broke her leg when she fell over in the mud trying to take her grandchild to the park. So I think it's great that there is now much more safe access to them. So thank you for taking that forward. Any other comments on this one? I think this is just a to note item, but I'll just say.
Just one other thing to note with this item is that we will be installing some picnic benches as well at the Wolfson Street access route and the Braybrook Street end as well.
Brilliant. And are those accessible picnic benches?
Yes, they are both.
Brilliant. Lovely. Thank you. Great. Lovely item. Next, Braybrook Playground. I don't know who's doing this one. We had a great time today formally opening it with the school. It's very lovely, very cute. Didn't go on the zip wire because it was raining, but at some point I will do when no one else is around. Osama, is this you again?
It is, yeah. It seems that I'm getting all the fun, cool elements of the manager's report, which is always good. So yeah, thank you to everybody for coming up today. Obviously, you could tell that the Year 5 children were working very, very hard to memorise their speech, which was absolutely fantastic. Thank you to Wicksteed as well, our contractor, for coming down and handing out some goodie bags, and to everyone who came across. We do have some monitoring and evaluation compliance to kind of go ahead with in terms of the HS2 Community Environment Fund, which this was funded by, and that's going to entail doing a year's worth of surveys with those children and other users of the playground, and that's going to be fed into HS2 at a later date. Faye very kindly got in touch, and herself and a few other sort of residents in the area suggested that we fence off the playground with some low-level wooden fencing. Emma very kindly had a look at some quotes as well, and so we have got a quote for some low-level wooden fencing just for that playground. But what I would like the committee to agree to, or to kind of make some sort of agreement on, is whether to just fence off that new playground, or to do the same for the older playground, which is adjacent to the new playground, and also the outdoor gym area, which is just on the other side of that footpath. So which one of those two scenarios would we like to go with?
I mean, happy to take comments on this. I think it probably makes sense to do them together. It feels a bit odd to have one bit fenced off but not the other, and particularly if we're hoping to potentially add to the park as well. It feels like it would make sense to have one integrated area that we were adding to. I think in terms of quotes, it'd be great that we've got one. Perhaps let's get a few more and see what we can get back as well. Councillor Stanton and then Stephen.
Thank you. Can I just ask, is the idea that the outside gym area would be sort of fenced off separately from the playground areas, so there'd be 2 or 3 areas rather than one big enclosure?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Stephen.
I'd go along with 3 rather than 2, because otherwise you're fencing off a through route, really, between the 2 bits of the younger children's playgrounds. I don't know exactly what the length of the fence is, but Osama told me what quote he'd had for some of it, and it seemed to me very high. And I just wanted to throw that in. I've recently done some wooden fencing, not in London, and significantly lower cost than that, at acknowledging that it's not in London and so on. But so alternative quotes would be great. And I hope we might plant some kind of shrubs or hedge on the outside of the fencing because it's an opportunity for ecological improvement as well as appearance. And just to say that we, the Friends, and I'm sure the Charitable Trust, have been asked by HS2 to put in for more of their lovely community support funding. And this seems to me one item that it might be appropriate to do. And the Friends have agreed to get together with Osama and talk through who might apply for what. Obviously, we can't apply for anything that Charitable Trust doesn't think is a good idea, and we wouldn't want to anyway. But it might be helpful to have two entities applying. Who knows? So I just wanted to share that with the committee, and we're going to work with Osama to try and bring it forward to best advantage of the scrubs.
Thank you. That sounds good. Good. Well, let's see where those conversations go. And maybe once we've got some more quotes, we can think about what works with the fencing. If it's astronomical costs, maybe we can think about it. But I think, yeah, having a fence is good, but let's think about the future plans for the area and what we want those to look like as well with the if we do want new equipment in. Fine, thank you. Anyone else? So I think on that one, that's committee waiting for quotes and then approving once we know more at that point.
Thank you, Chair.
Great. Okay. Hedge laying.
That is me again. Thank you very much, Chair. So yeah, so we agreed a £19,200 budget initially to lay 200 metres of hedge. That figure was arrived at by looking at how much it had cost to lay the previous 100 metres of hedge last season. That was facilitated by an external coordinator, and so hence the facilitation fee was quite considerable. And the initial assumption was that we would have these be facilitated by an external person, and then that would then translate into an accreditation that each of the volunteers would receive as a result of taking part in it. Unfortunately, we were unable to secure that person. And so thankfully, Kate McVeigh, our on-site ecologist, took the lead and was absolutely fantastic in drumming up support in the community, getting volunteers excited about it. Also, I should mention that Emma was absolutely fantastic in also banging the drum and getting everybody really into the idea of doing some hedge laying on the scrubs. And they have managed to lay just under 200 metres of hedge in just over 2 months, which is an incredible achievement at a cost of just over £4,000. So when you take away the facilitation fees, you see a massive cost saving, a saving of about £15,000. So I'd still prefer that we do accredit some of the volunteers that have worked really hard to get on the scrubs and get their hands mucky and learn a fantastic skill. It's always good to go away with something that you can put in your CV or even use to upskill into a new role if you wanted to do that. And of course, you know, going into the master plan's implementation, it's going to be very, very important that we have some keen green-fingered volunteers that are happy to get involved in lots of different programs on the scrubs. So I'll probably come back to the committee at the next session once I've secured a facilitator, fingers crossed, for the next planting season. And I'll give a final amount for how much we will allocate just for that project and the saving that we'll make from that initial £19,200.
Thank you very much, Summer. I mean, when I first saw this, I was shocked at the cost of the hedge. I thought it was very, very high cost, and that was before I realised the significance of the accreditation. And actually, exactly as Osama has very eloquently outlined, I think it's a brilliant thing to be able to give back to our volunteers who make the scrubs what it is, and who work incredibly hard to make it beautiful and do amazing things like hedging, which it turns out is incredibly hard work, which I probably could have guessed. And I should say I haven't taken part in it. I've just watched people and felt exhausted watching them. So absolutely, in my mind, they deserve an accreditation if they can get one. And thank you to Emma and to Kate for all of the hard work that they've done. And we hope many more volunteers go and join in as well. Great, thank you. Item 6, who's going to take this one? This is Kensington Dragons.
Yes, Chair. Steve Hollingworth, Citizen Director, Leisure, Sport and Culture. I'll take this one. So this really is an update on the timeline of the project. But just to outline the purpose of it, it is about creating a new fit-for-purpose 11-a-side football pitch for Kensington Dragons to move up the divisions. So they have a fit-for-purpose pitch to do that. The pitch will be predominantly for their use. But while they're doing that, they will also deliver the resurfacing of a hockey pitch, 2 5-a-side pitches for football, which can be used as a 7-a-side pitch, and also a multi-games use area, which can be used for netball, basketball, etc. So that's the scheme. It has moved slightly north, which we have reported in the past. That's to retain the poplar trees. That results in going into the play area, and therefore we need to secure the hedge will be part of the scheme, and it will be between the hockey pitch and the play area, and the boundary between the pitches and the pony centre is unaffected with those trees there. So that's the scheme. Now, Kensington Dragons tell me that all the surveys have been completed. They now need to just double check on the planning. They got permitted planning permission for the last plan they submitted. They think they'll get the same again, so they're just going to double check that and get that permitted development from the planning. Once that's received, they'll just finalise their documents for tendering. They'll then go out and get quotes, hopefully agree the quote, and then have to mobilise the contractors. So that's an unknown really on the timescale for that, but the build time is about 6 months. So all in all, I think the whole scheme will take probably 12 months from where we are. They may think that might be quicker, but we'll see. I think the important thing for us is to make sure the public pitches are completed as quickly as possible, so there's the least downtime for those to be booked, or will be out of the action for the public. And obviously, while they are out of action, we'll be losing income. So that's a conversation we'll have with the Dragons to make sure that we can do this incrementally, so not everything's all out at once. So that's the update, Chair. I think it'll be a year, but I think we're getting there to the final stage on this now.
Thank you, Steve. Fine. Any questions on this? I think this might be another one where I struggle to open the attachment, which I should have said far sooner than today. I think whoever's written this has done a very clever job of embedding the links in it, but I think it might be going into the council SharePoint, which I think I can't access. So I imagine people outside the council probably can't access it either. So it would be helpful to have the links updated in the papers so that people can view the different versions separately to this. Thank you. Miriam, were you going to make the same point? Or you're muted. Miriam, you're still muted. Yeah, that's not worked for me.
Has it worked now?
Yes, marvellous, brilliant.
Sorry about that. I was going to say, I think it's great that this project, which has been in the works for really a very long time, is now finally getting sort of close to fruition, because of course Kensington Dragons are a sort of great kind of community group and asset. And then I was going to ask a tangential question about Linford Christie's other main group, which is TVH, and whether there's any update on their clubhouse plans.
Thank you, Chair. I can come back on that. We are still talking to TVH about the clubhouse, and but also expanded our discussions around the track, and actually, which is the most urgent. and we have a site meeting with them in the next fortnight to just to go through that and make sure we've got the right priorities. But I'm sure they're still keen to deliver the clubhouse, but we want to make sure they've got a usable track as well, first and foremost.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, any other questions on the Dragons? Miriam says it's been a long time coming, so it's good that it's moving forward. Thank you. Okay, item 7, Scrubs Watch.
Back to Azama, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Steve. So this is a fantastic project that the Friends can probably speak a bit more to than I can. However, I'll give the update. So this project does feed into our ecological baseline survey project, which we signed off at the previous committee meeting, which is essentially another day a week of Kate's time to basically do a big audit of all the flora and fauna on the Scrubs. And so Scrubs Watch, I love the name, by the way, whoever came up with it, fantastic, is basically an initiative for any user who comes onto the Scrubs to scan a QR code when you get to an entrance and follow the app download instructions. That takes you to a platform called What 3 Words. What 3 Words is basically a GPS location app. And so, you know, I'm a user, I walk onto the Scrubs, I see a plant that I really love, I can take a picture of it, go onto the app, and then that will link to the location that I'm standing in, and it will cross-reference into the database that Kate is using to update this master plan, essentially, of all the different flora and fauna on the Scrubs. We want to make it a little bit more accessible by making sure that those who aren't as tech-savvy are able to use physical maps to plot whatever they'd like onto that and hand that into Kate as well. And we're going to have a discussion as well, myself, Stephen and Faye, about how we can ensure that this is a financially sustainable project and how we can look for external funding to make sure that we can continue this in the future.
Thank you. Miriam and Stephen, do you want to talk about this? I mean, obviously, it's a brilliant project. It's really, really innovative and clever, and it's a great way to get people engaged with the Scrubs. So really well done for whoever came up with it. It's great. Miriam, over to you.
I don't have very much to add other than I had a brief discussion with Kate, who says that there's been sort of lots of birding relating activity, which is great. Less so on sort of flora, but it's sort of obviously, you know, early in the season. So yeah, so far seems to be going well. And also just to sort of raise the point that in terms of external funding, this could be, again, something for the HS2 community fund.
Absolutely. I think that'd be a really good idea. Lovely. Great. Well, well done again. Thank you. Okay, tree planting.
Yes, back to Vicky, Chair.
Vicky.
Yeah, it's just to note really that there's been quite a bit of tree planting going on just lately with the 15 or the 17 standard trees planted as part of the HS2 works, 2 on the alternative access route and 15 spread around the Scrubs, plus the 300 whips and shrubs that were planted as part of that. But I know Kate has also ran a corporate volunteer day where they had 17 volunteers and they planted at least 210 whips that day as well.
Great, huge number of planting. Thank you. Fine. Any comments, questions on this part? Other than saying great, long that may that continue. Fine, thank you. Carmen and Nick, over to you, I assume, for the forecast, financial forecast and the budget.
Yes, good evening. Carmen Lamoti, Principal Accountant for Leisure, Sports and Culture. And today I'm presenting for just to note the forecast for 22-23 and proposing the budget for 23-24. So the forecast at the moment it's improved quite a bit since the last time. That's mainly because we're now reflecting the grants. So we've got 2 grants included now, they weren't previously, and the cost against those. But overall, so income seems to increased quite a lot, and expenditure's gone down. But the expenditure and the income actually net off because the spend is covered by the grant. So the main reason for the additional surplus relates to the fact that we're not actually funding Kensington Dragons this year. We're expecting to pay some funds to them. So that's the main reason. And the actual depot wall was also forecasted, and that is now taking place next financial year. So we're forecasting to actually achieve a £395,000 net income. So as opposed to the budget was set at 250. So that's 144 better than the forecast, than the budget there. So I've then detailed the income items. As I said, the grant was 180,000 and expenditure is 180,000 for the Braybook Street playground and access improvements. So 110,000, 70,000 for the playground. The pay and display income isn't as originally budgeted, but so that's actually 26,000 down. But we actually overachieved on the car park license because of the inflation, because obviously inflation is quite high. So we've got another 10,000 in compared to budget there. The items for expenditure are also less, and so that's the makeup of the forecast. So those items are to note. I'm not quite sure whether anyone's got any questions on that, Chair.
Thank you, Carmen. That's all really helpful. Thank you. Has anyone got any questions on the budget and forecast? Councillor Stanton.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I have just a couple of questions, really, just for clarity, just so I can understand. In no particular order, so I've got the budget over here, which is why I'm not looking at you. On page 23 of the agenda, note 2, it says agreed inflationary increase of 38.2%. Is that correct?
Yes.
So 32% over the last, is that over 12 months or since the original base?
The original base.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, yeah. I thought it might be. Just checking. Yeah. I mean, I knew inflation was bad. I just didn't think it was that bad.
Yes.
The other thing about the car parking and the fact we've introduced weekend payments, is there any chance kind of for next time just to a breakdown about the amount of income sort of Monday to Friday and also at the weekends? Because I'm just mildly curious as to why the income from the car park sort of has gone down, especially since we've come out of lockdown and people can now go out. So it would just be useful to see, because obviously if some of the reduction has been offset by the weekend parking, then the actual level of parking is even lower than it had been previously, and by some considerable amount. So it would just be useful if we could see kind of the average weekly and weekend income, but also how it varies by month. It would just be useful to see if that were possible.
Yes, Chair, because in general, income has gone down across the council. I didn't report it again in this one, but in the last manager's report, I did state that. So yes, what I'll do, I will split that out for you in the next report. But in general, it has. We're not sure why, but income is down. Parking is down.
Maybe people are choosing to get the bus instead, given how small and accessible our borough is.
Yeah.
Fine. Carmen, maybe that could be circulated in advance of the next meeting. That's worth the
Yes, I'll circulate that split.
Great, thank you.
So Chair, I didn't actually give any items on the actual budget. I was talking about the forecast. I'm not quite sure whether everyone is happy with what is proposed in the budget, and if there's any questions on that.
Thank you. I'm just going to ask Stephen, have you got a question on the forecast or the budget or both?
I think it's both, which is that we have quite considerable sums of cash now. And I just wanted to be sure, now that interest rates are a little higher than they were a year ago, whether we're earning interest within the, no doubt within the council's general budgetary arrangements, financial arrangements, or our sums, because we've got 1.4 rising to 2 point something in 2 years' time. Even at 3%, that's quite useful money.
Yes, so interest has been low recently. I've just been cautious because obviously for next year it is likely to increase, but I haven't actually given any sharp increase in the interest, but because I think the interest was below £200 or so the last time, so it's been quite low. So I'm forecasting 2,000 for 2023-24.
Yeah, Stephen and then Councillor Stanton.
Maybe the same question.
Sorry, I think it's the same question.
Yeah.
I can't think how you can only earn £2,000 on £1.5 million on deposit. And I would urge the council to earn better money than that on its funds, easily available with your bank or with a money fund without taking risks. I suspect that Councillor Stanton was going to say something similar, but if it was my charity's £1 million not earning somewhere between 20 and 30,000 rather than 2,000, I would be disappointed.
Chair, I will take that back, but obviously for something that will give you that return, it could be quite risky. So anything that we would be thinking of investing, we'd have to come back to yourselves so that you decide on the risk. Yes,
that's it. So I think fair point, and it's something that we need to think about, both Stephen and Councillor Stanton, of what we do with the amount of money we have. Obviously, we do use it throughout the year, so we need an account which gives us quick access, which often precludes some of those higher interest rates. We have got a significant amount of money, but it may be that we haven't always had this level of income. We will probably not have this level of income going forward for very long. So we also want to be very mindful of that we have built up a bit of a nest egg, but also that's got to see us for the foreseeable as well, which is something I think we're also keeping in mind. Yes. And also, again, as a charitable trust, we also have quite strict rules about how we can manage our finances. So we probably can't go full Gordon Gecko mode, but I think we probably could have a look at the way things are being managed. Nick, did you want to come in, and then I'll go back to Councillor?
Yes, thanks, Chair. And firstly, just apologies, my camera's not working, otherwise I would have it on. But I will happily look into that interest question, because I think we're probably at the moment basing it on, I could be wrong, but we're probably basing it on what we've received last year. But I can speak to Treasury colleagues and hopefully get an idea of what we'd expect in this financial year, because we hopefully would receive higher interest in this financial year. So yes, I'll look into that.
Fine, thank you. And maybe come back to the other one. Yeah, I mean, first, I think just to manage expectations around it, perhaps it's going to be a super high rate of return, as it maybe could be if we were a different type of organisation. But I think, let's see what we can do. Councillor Stanton, do you have another point on that one?
So it was on the same point. All I was going to say was that a money market account on a 1 month contract is giving about 3.3% at the moment, which is a safe investment. I know we couldn't put it all away every month, but that would give £46,000 just as a very simple account, risk free, which takes about 2 minutes to set up.
Well, let's and I am aware we use those elsewhere across the council, so let's but obviously the trust is separate, so Nick and Carmen, perhaps we can have a separate conversation about that and see if there's a way forward talking to the Treasury team. and see if there's something to do there. But thank you, all good for me. Fine. Anything else on budget forecast? Fine. Nick, sorry, is that a new point?
Yes, sorry, thanks, Chair. Just a very quick update on the fact that so the 22-23 accounts obviously coming to the end of the financial year now, so I'll be preparing that shortly. And yeah, just thanks to Carmen for all the budget monitoring she's done throughout the year. And I'll also be circulating a quote for the audit of the 22-23 accounts by the next committee for committee to approve. So just to add that.
That's good to know. So we will be on watch for those. Brilliant. Thank you both, Nick and Carmen, for that. That is very helpful and some good points to think about from there. Lovely. So are those approved? Good. Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks so much. Law enforcement update. So in Neil's absence, Steve is going to do this. And could I remind everyone to be on mute, please, if you are not speaking? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, Neil sends his apologies, actually, if we can put that in the minutes. So yeah, the report's on the appendix at the back there. So they've actually outlined a table on the number of visits they've done from the 1st of December through to the 26th of Feb, which is 305 in total. So those are the actual visits. The majority, 135, are sort of visible presence without any interaction, but there were quite a few on antisocial behaviour, 39. Obviously they're locking the gates as well, and those are probably the main ones, although they have been talking about the PSPO, about the dogs, etc. We have had travellers in the hospital car park area of Scrubs car park on 2 occasions, and in fact on a 3rd occasion recently they've come back, and the law enforcement team are talking tomorrow to the hospital property people to see if we can get another height restriction barrier in that car park to stop them getting in, because in the past they've gone into that car park area and then cut to the fence to come into the main Scrubs area, which has cost us money. So that's positive, and hopefully we'll have a good result from that. There have been 2 abandoned vehicles which have been removed. I think those are the highlights. There's a new member of the LEP team starting, or just started, Paul Islas. He's dedicated to the Old Oak Common ward. The 2 senior staff, though, Ahmed Rafiq and Neil Morrison, are still the main contact. The contacts in the report, and they're more than happy for anybody to contact them and have a walk around the Scrubs or the ward if they've got any issues. So I think that's the summary, Chair. I'm happy to take anything back to them if anybody's got any questions.
Thank you. I mean, I think just to pass on, whenever I go and speak to residents, they always say they feel very assured by the LET officers. I think I have this right, but I think they patrol the Scrubs more than any other area in the whole of the borough, because of its size and, you know, because things do happen on there. So please do go and say hello to them. They are all lovely and very committed to their jobs. But yeah, I think just pass back our thanks for them to continuing to patrol the area.
Thank you, Chair.
Fine, thank you. All right, I think that takes us to the end of the manager's report. Just scrolling down. Yeah, seems to lovely. Okay. Right, well, that brings us on to Miriam and Stephen proposals for Liverpool Christie Stadium by the Friends of Wormwood Scrubs. So Stephen and Miriam, over to you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to lead on this one. The Friends, and particularly the trustees acting for the Friends, feel that it would be very beneficial for the Scrubs and for Liverpool Christie Stadium, and indeed for the borough as a whole, to take a serious look at Liverpool Christie and what needs doing there. In a sense, Steve Hollingworth referred to this in his comments about the Thames Valley Harriers clubhouse when he was saying that maybe the track is more urgent even than the clubhouse, because there's no question that there has been a distinct under-maintenance of the whole of Linford Christie over many years, and it does need bringing up to standard in many ways. I think what I feel is that what we've written is a reasoned proposal for a properly planned, comprehensive and unified approach to modernising the facilities provided within LCS, which will be to the benefit of all residents of the borough and indeed conforms with the Labour Party, the governing party manifesto, to bring good leisure and sporting facilities to the borough. And this is the principal one, I believe, in the borough. And of course, it's of great benefit to the borough's neighbours as well, which fulfills an important element of our purposes under our Act of Parliament. I'm not going to talk right through it all. What we are asking, well, we have suggested that the things that should be looked at are the track, the lighting, the changing room facilities, which are in terrible condition, the covered track, which is both too short and really doesn't work and could be greatly improved, and to do this in a comprehensive and planned way, recognizing that it will be a multi-year project if it were to happen and to be taken forward. We would like to look at whether there is an area suitable for a Lido if a Lido were ever to be built as part of the project, but we don't think that planning the Lido should be part of this project. We're just looking to see if there's a space where it could go if it was viable.
Stephen, sorry, you've suddenly gone quite quiet for me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why.
You're much better now. Fine, thank you.
Okay. So we've taken quite a lot of guidance and advice in putting our paper together from Thames Valley Harriers, from Kensington Dragons, and guidance from the sports consultancy, one of the country's leading people working in this field, and also from a specialist consultant, Mark Thomas. And both sports consultancy and Mark Thomas have worked on other projects relating to Linford Christie's area in the past, including the Imperial and a rather grandiose scheme thought up but not implemented by Thames Valley Harriers about 7 or 8 years ago. What we want to do is to end up with facilities which are fit for the 21st century, to form part of the borough's high-quality sporting infrastructure, can be used by schools, by clubs, by teams, by individuals from within and neighbouring the borough. What we would like to put forward is to ask relevant officers, and I don't know if it's Osama or somebody else within the borough who is more specialist in sports facilities, to work with us, possibly with a small budget for consultants, to come up with some detailed, better thought through than what we put forward, which are very much high level, because we didn't have a budget for consultants. I asked the consultants I've mentioned, and they were talking about £5,000 to do it properly, but we don't have that. The Friends don't have that. And so I would like to ask this committee to authorise Charitable Trust and any relevant borough officers to spend sufficient time to work out properly what needs to be done, how it could be managed, what it would be cost, where the money might come from, and what the timetable might be. But I suppose it's more than a feasibility study, but it's not the complete project, which will cost, no doubt, if approved, a great deal more than that in architects and consultants. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Stephen, and thank you for all the work the Friends have put into this. Are there any questions for anyone? Or comments?
Chair, if I can just come back on that. Yeah, I did allude to the state of the track. I'm aware of its, in dire straits really, and probably this is the last season we do need to do something about it. So I've actually been looking into costs and getting some work on quotes to get an up-to-date quote to actually try and source some funding, and that maybe from several parties to get the track in the fit state until a further development may or may not come forward. So some of that work, as Stephen has mentioned, is already underway. So I'm happy to talk to the Friends outside the meeting on where we are. Some of what certainly on the athletics facilities that is already underway, Chair, because I think we need to do something.
Yes, we were looking at, of course, at the athletic facilities, but the changing rooms and the covered track and the stand and the lighting in addition to that. The covered track is a six-figure sum, and the whole project will certainly be a small number of millions. I don't know how many. Depends exactly what's decided. And whether it's decided it's affordable and fundable.
And I think we were also looking at, which may, be in conjunction with the Thames Valley Harriers clubhouse, better, broader facilities for the community. So obviously kind of a cafe, ecology centre, loos, all the sort of basics that I think people would like to see. And obviously, I mean, it goes without saying that what we envisage or would like to see is something that's very much in keeping with the broader ethos of the Scrubs and something that enhances the Scrubs and its purposes rather than impinges on it.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Fine. Just to say, obviously, everything with Olympia Christie is a bit of a moving feast at the moment. And so I think we can absolutely take this into consideration when we're kind of thinking about the next steps. Obviously, it sounds like there are lots of work streams at the moment that may cover off some of this. I appreciate not all. But I think anything that does happen, we will obviously be kind of working with local residents and co-producing the way forward. To make sure we're trying to get a maximum number of local residents' views and thinking about next steps and what we do with the Christie. So this is a really helpful document to help us think about that and next steps. So thank you again for the time taken to produce it.
Should Steve Hollingworth and I meet offline, obviously, to work out how to take it forward?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. If that's all right with you, Steve.
Yes, Chair, absolutely. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Great.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
I think you've
gone on mute.
Oh, I was very efficient with my mute button. Muted myself unnecessarily. I said I think that nearly brings us to the end of this evening's meeting. Future dates, the next meeting will be on the 21st of June. AOB, has anyone else got any AOB before I launch in? Miriam, in fact, I think we're going to say the same thing, but if you would, over to you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I am not intending to reoffer myself as a co-opted member for the Charitable Trust Committee next year. I think I've been either an observer or a co-opted member for as long as this committee has been in existence, and for longer than any officer or councillor. And I think, yeah, if there were term limits, I would definitely be up.
Been here for as long as Leicester's Embankment's been called Leicester's Embankment.
Not quite that long.
I mean, Miriam has been an absolutely integral part of this committee for as long as it's been around, and I'm sure much longer than that. And you are going to be very, very sorely missed. And thank you for all of your work, dedication, wisdom, and humour that you have given to this community.
It is my great pleasure, and I will still be, keeping a little bit of a watching eye on proceedings.
I would feel very disappointed if you weren't. You have been absolutely brilliant and a joy to work with. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much.
Stephen, did you want to?
Well, when I joined you in succession to David Jeffries, Miriam was already a long-standing member, and she has guided me and helped me and kept me on the straight and narrow when necessary, and remembers things from the far past as well as the recent past. And I am going to miss her very much on this committee, but also she's not going to stand for be a trustee of the Friends when we come to our AGM in the spring, and we're going to miss her very much. And I know her phone number and her email address, and will continue to seek her advice as a friend, big F, and friend, small f. So, and thank you, Miriam, very much for all you have contributed, and I'm sure will go on contributing.
Thank you, Stephen.
Absolutely. Thank you. Brilliant. Well, thank you. I'm not going to make us do a terrible round of applause on Zoom because it never works. It's embarrassing, and I know you'll hate it. Just to say thank you again from all of us here, and
it's been a total pleasure. Possibly not always for officers with my endless repeated questions, but
I think we always like challenge. It's always very welcome, and you're always very, very on it with the challenge. So it's very welcome. I think we always welcome being kept on our toes about everything. So thank you again. Brilliant. Any other items of AOB? And if not, I'll bring the meeting to a close. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining this evening. Very nice to see all your faces. Thank you again to everyone, but particularly Miriam.